Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what I'm about to reveal will shake everything you thought you knew about how the Dallas Cowboys operate. For decades, we've watched Jerry Jones take his sweet time with coaching decisions, dragging out the process like a drawn-out soap opera while America's team spirals into mediocrity. But something extraordinary just happened in the hallowed halls of the Star in Frisco, Texas, and it might signal the most significant cultural earthquake this franchise has experienced in years. Matt Eberflus is gone, fired, terminated, given his walking papers. And if you think this was just another routine coaching casualty in the National Football League, you couldn't be more wrong. This wasn't business as usual. This was a seismic shift in power, a potential changing of the guard that could redefine how America's most valuable sports franchise operates moving forward. The defensive coordinator who presided over the worst defensive performance in Cowboys franchise history, who orchestrated a unit so catastrophically bad it ranks among the 6 worst defenses in the entire history of professional football, has finally been shown the door. But here's where it gets absolutely juicy. All the evidence suggests that Jerry Jones, the man who's controlled every major decision for this team since 1989, might not have been the one pulling the trigger on this firing. Let that sink in for a moment. Jerry Jones, the billionaire owner who famously said he could get any grade school person to be general manager, who's micromanaged every aspect of this franchise for 35 years, who notoriously takes weeks or even months to make coaching decisions while the media circus swirls around him, suddenly made a lightning-fast move to fire a defensive coordinator just one day after the season ended. Does that sound like the Jerry Jones we've come to know? Does that match the pattern of behavior we've witnessed for over 3 decades? Absolutely not. And that's exactly why this story is so explosive. Let's rewind the tape and examine what actually transpired here, because the timeline tells a fascinating story. Just 24 hours before Eberflus got canned, respected Fort Worth Star-Telegram reporter Nick Harris dropped a report stating that Jerry Jones and new head coach Brian Schottenheimer were looking at a 10 to 12-day evaluation process. 10 to 12 days. That's the Jerry Jones we know, the one who deliberates, pontificates, holds court with the media, and turns every coaching decision into a drawn-out spectacle. That's the playbook that's been run for years, the familiar pattern that's as predictable as death, taxes, and the Cowboys disappointing their fans in January. But then something unprecedented happened. Less than a day later, boom, Matt Eberflus was out. The announcement came swiftly, decisively, and with none of the typical Jerry Jones hemming and hawing we've become accustomed to. The official Cowboys social media account released a statement from Jones that read like it was written by a corporate PR team trying to soften a blow that someone else had already decided to deliver. Having known Matt Eberflus for decades now, we have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation for him as a coach and a person, the statement began, dripping with the kind of diplomatic language that screams, "I didn't really want to do this, but my hand was forced." It continued. After reviewing and discussing the results of our defensive performance this season, though, it was clear that change is needed. This is the first step in that process, and we will continue that review as it applies to reaching our much higher expectations. Read between those lines, folks, that statement doesn't sound like a man who was chomping at the bit to make this move. That sounds like someone who got talked into a decision, who was presented with evidence so overwhelming that even the most stubborn executive in professional sports had to admit defeat. And here's where our story takes its most intriguing turn, because all signs point to one person who might have been whispering in Jerry's ear, one individual who might have finally accomplished what countless others before him could not, convincing Jerry Jones to act quickly and decisively for the good of the team. That person is Brian Shottenheimer, the newly minted head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, before we dive deeper into this theory, let's establish exactly why firing Matt Eberflus wasn't just the right move, but the most obvious, no-brainer decision in recent Cowboys history. The statistics are so abysmal, so historically catastrophic, that they barely seem real. Under Eberflus's leadership, The Cowboys' defense achieved a level of futility that will be studied for years as a case study in how not to run an NFL defense. Ready for this laundry list of shame? The Cowboys posted the worst passing defense in the entire National Football League. Not second worst, not third worst, dead last. 32nd out of 32 teams, the absolute bottom of the barrel. Opposing quarterbacks looked like Hall of Famers against this secondary, carving up the Cowboys through the air with such ease that it became a national punchline. But wait, there's more. The defense ranked middle of the pack in rushing defense, which sounds mediocre until you realize that being average at stopping the run while being historically terrible at stopping the pass is actually an achievement in incompetence. You can't even claim to be specialists in one area when you're this bad. The red zone defense, worst conversion percentage allowed in the league. When opposing teams got inside the 20-yard line, they scored touchdowns with such regularity that Cowboys fans began treating it as a foregone conclusion. Third down defense, once again worst in the NFL. Third and long became third and automatic for opponents. The Cowboys couldn't get off the field, couldn't create manageable situations, couldn't force punts when the game was on the line, and perhaps most damningly, they finished in the top 5 for most points allowed, cementing their status as one of the most porous defenses in football. But those contemporary statistics only tell part of the horror story. When you zoom out and look at the historical context, the picture becomes even bleaker. This Cowboys defense achieved the distinction of allowing more points than any Dallas defense in franchise history. Think about that. In the entire storied history of America's team, from the Roger Staubach era through the Troy Aikman dynasty to the current Dak Prescott years, no Cowboys defense has ever been this bad. They also posted the 6th worst defensive performance in the entire history of the NFL, a league that's been around for over 100 years. This wasn't just a bad season. This was a historically unprecedented collapse. The advanced metrics confirm what our eyes told us every Sunday. The Cowboys recorded the worst defensive DVOA, defense-adjusted value over average, since the stat started being tracked, and the worst overall defensive performance since 1982. For those who don't speak analytics, DVOA is one of the most comprehensive measurements of team performance because it adjusts for situation, opponent strength, and context. It's not just raw yardage or points. It's a holistic view of how effectively a defense performed. And by that measurement, the 2024 Cowboys defense was the worst in modern NFL history. With a resume like that, firing Matt Eberflus should have been the easiest decision Jerry Jones ever made. It should have required zero deliberation, zero consultation, zero 10 to 12-day evaluation periods. A competent general manager would have had the pink slip ready before the final whistle even blew on the season-ending loss. And yet, based on the reporting from just a day before, Jerry Jones was apparently prepared to drag this out for nearly 2 weeks. So what changed? What happened in those crucial hours that transformed Jerry Jones from his typical cautious self into someone capable of swift, decisive action? The most compelling theory making the rounds in Cowboy circles is that Brian Schottenheimer, the new head coach, who spent years inside the organization as offensive coordinator, who knows Jerry Jones as well as anyone in football, who has the pedigree of growing up around the NFL with his father, Marty Schottenheimer, serving as a legendary head coach, finally did what no one else could. He walked into Jerry's office and told him exactly how it was going to be. Think about Schottenheimer's unique position. He's not some outside hire who's trying to navigate the Cowboys' Byzantine political structure while tiptoeing around Jerry's massive ego. He's been inside the building, observing the dysfunction, watching talented rosters underachieve year after year, seeing firsthand how the Cowboys' glacial decision-making process has hindered the team's ability to compete. He's earned Jerry's trust over years of service, and crucially, he has the background and experience to speak credibly about what it takes to build a winning culture because he witnessed it firsthand growing up in an NFL coaching family. Bobby Belt, a respected voice in Cowboys coverage, captured this sentiment perfectly in a tweet that's been circulating through the fan base. The fact that this decision happened so quickly might reflect a change from Jerry Jones in his approach to coaching decision timelines, but it might just reflect that Brian Schottenheimer was the one making the decision and will be running point on who they hire. That single statement encapsulates what could be the most significant development in Cowboys' organizational structure in decades. If Schottenheimer truly is asserting control over personnel decisions, if he genuinely has the authority to override Jerry's instincts and push for immediate action, then we might be witnessing the dawn of a new era in Dallas. Imagine the scene. Schottenheimer, fresh off being named head coach, sitting across from Jerry Jones in that massive office overlooking the practice fields of the Star. Maybe there's a game film playing on one of the giant screens, showing yet another defensive breakdown, another blown coverage, another instance of Cowboys defenders looking lost and confused. Schottenheimer knows he has to strike while the iron is hot, before Jerry's natural tendency toward loyalty and patience kicks in. He probably laid out the case methodically, the historical nature of the defensive failure, the impossibility of defending this performance to players and fans, the need to send an immediate message that the culture is changing under his leadership. And maybe, just maybe, he added the kicker, Jerry, if we wait 10 days on this, everyone in the NFL will know that nothing has really changed here. They'll see it as business as usual, another year where the Cowboys talk about change, but move at a snail's pace while our competitors get aggressive. But if we do this now, today, we send a message that this organization is finally serious about competing for championships. Whether that conversation happened exactly that way, we'll probably never know. But the results speak for themselves. Matt Eberflus was fired swiftly, and the Cowboys organization issued a statement that sounded more like damage control than a triumphant declaration. Jerry Jones, the master showman who's never met a microphone he didn't love, kept his comments to that brief written statement. No press conference, no elaborate explanations, no 40-minute monologues about the complexities of defensive football, just a quick, clean break. Now comes the fascinating part. Who's next? Because firing Eberflus was the easy decision, the no-brainer move that should have been made the moment the season ended. The hard part, the decision that will actually determine whether the Cowboys can turn this defense around, is choosing the right replacement. And here's where the Cowboys' recent history becomes both instructive and concerning. Over the past 4 seasons, Dallas has employed 4 different defensive coordinators: Rod Marinelli, Mike Nolan, Dan Quinn, Mike Zimmer, and now the departed Matt Eberflus. Notice a pattern? Every single one of those names belongs to a former NFL head coach. The Cowboys have consistently turned to experienced coaches with head coaching pedigrees to run their defense, a strategy that's yielded mixed results at best. Dan Quinn was excellent, transforming the Cowboys into a legitimately fearsome defensive unit that terrorized opposing offenses. But Mike Zimmer and Matt Eberflus, those hirings ranged from disappointing to catastrophic. The question facing Schottenheimer and presumably Jones is whether to continue this trend or break from recent history. And the timing couldn't be more interesting because the NFL coaching carousel has already started spinning with impressive velocity. Within just 24 hours of the season ending, 4 head coaches have already been shown the door. Kevin Stefanski got canned by the Cleveland Browns, despite winning Coach of the Year honors in the recent past. Pete Carroll received a pink slip from the Las Vegas Raiders after a disappointing single season with the team. Jonathan Gannon was ousted by the Arizona Cardinals following an underwhelming performance. And Raheem Morris got the axe from the Atlanta Falcons after failing to meet expectations with a talented roster. 4 available former head coaches, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and defensive philosophies. If the Cowboys follow their recent pattern, one of these men will become the next defensive coordinator of America's team. Raheem Morris seems like the most natural fit given his extensive experience coordinating defenses and his recent stint as a head coach. He knows what it takes to build a system, communicate with players, and manage the massive egos that inevitably populate an NFL roster. But does going that route represent real change, or is it just repeating the same pattern that's given us 4 different defensive coordinators in 4 years? The alternative, the choice that would represent genuine organizational evolution, would be to target someone like Brian Flores, the current Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator, who's orchestrated one of the league's most improved defenses. Flores has been nothing short of brilliant in Minnesota, taking a unit that struggled mightily the previous season and transforming it into a legitimate playoff caliber defense. His scheme is aggressive, creative, and perfectly suited to the modern NFL, where quarterbacks and passing attacks dominate the landscape. He disguises coverages masterfully, generates pressure from unexpected places, and has a proven track record of developing young defensive backs into legitimate playmakers. The catch with Flores is that he appears destined for another head coaching opportunity after his controversial exit from the Miami Dolphins, where his subsequent lawsuit against the NFL for racial discrimination in hiring practices made headlines and raised uncomfortable questions about league-wide practices. Flores has been working to rebuild his reputation and position himself for another shot at leading a franchise. Multiple teams with head coaching vacancies will undoubtedly reach out to him, hoping to capitalize on his undeniable coaching acumen, while the controversy has faded somewhat from the headlines. But here's the intriguing possibility. What if Flores decides he's not interested in jumping back into the head coaching fire just yet? What if he's learned from his Miami experience that being a head coach requires more than just X's and O's brilliance, that navigating ownership politics and media scrutiny and organizational management might not be his primary strength or interest? What if he looks at the Cowboys situation, a team with elite offensive talent led by Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, a roster that's genuinely just a competent defense away from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and thinks, I can fix this defense in 1 year and cement my legacy as one of the great defensive minds in football? That scenario, admittedly speculative, would represent exactly the kind of bold, unconventional thinking that the Cowboys desperately need. Instead of retreading the same familiar path of hiring former head coaches who might be past their prime or set in their ways, they'd be getting an innovative mind at the height of his powers, someone with something to prove and the tactical brilliance to back it up. Flores would bring the kind of aggressive, attacking mentality that this Cowboys defense has sorely lacked, a philosophy that matches the modern NFL, where passive defenses get shredded week after week. Of course, we can't ignore the elephant in the room when discussing potential defensive coordinator hires. Matt Eberflus himself bears significant responsibility for the roster construction that ultimately failed. It's not as if he inherited this personnel and had no say in shaping it to fit his scheme. Eberflus was heavily involved in the process of bringing in players like linebacker Damone Clark, safety Donovan Wilson, and other defensive pieces that ultimately underperformed. He helped construct his own roster and then proceeded to get historically bad results from it. As Cowboys commentator John Owning astutely noted, the annoying part of the Eberflus didn't have the talent to succeed argument is that it absolves him from player acquisition processes. We're acting like he didn't have a big say in bringing in Murray, Sanborn, Elam. He helped make his bed, and it backfired on him. That's a crucial point because it means whoever the Cowboys hire next will need to be someone with not just scheme expertise, but also talent evaluation skills. They'll need to identify which current players fit the new system and which need to be moved on from a delicate balancing act that requires both honesty and political savvy. They'll need to work with the scouting department and personnel staff to target specific archetypes in free agency and the draft. And they'll need to do all of this while working within the unique Cowboys organizational structure where Jerry Jones still maintains final say on major decisions. That's why the Schottenheimer angle is so critical to this entire story. If he truly has gained the authority to make swift decisions and override Jerry's instincts, then the next defensive coordinator hire becomes the first real test of whether this organizational shift is genuine or just an illusion. Will Schottenheimer push for an innovative hire like Flores, someone who represents a break from recent history, or will he take the safer route, hiring a Raheem Morris type who fits the mold of recent coordinators but might not move the needle significantly? The stakes couldn't be higher. The Cowboys have wasted years of Dak Prescott's prime, years where the offense has been legitimately elite, but the defense has ranged from mediocre to catastrophic. They've squandered the talents of players like Micah Parsons, one of the most disruptive defensive forces in the league, by surrounding him with inadequate schemes and subpar supporting casts. They've disappointed a fan base that remains passionate and engaged despite decades of playoff futility. And they've reinforced every negative stereotype about the organization, that they're more interested in headlines than championships, more focused on brand management than football excellence, more committed to the status quo than genuine innovation. This is the moment where all of that could change, not because of Jerry Jones suddenly seeing the light and revolutionizing his approach after 35 years, but because Brian Schottenheimer might have successfully executed a quiet coup, asserting authority in a way that doesn't publicly embarrass or diminish Jerry while still shifting the actual decision-making power structure. It's a delicate dance, the kind of organizational maneuvering that requires intelligence, patience, and a deep understanding of how to manage powerful personalities. Think about it from Schottenheimer's perspective. He knows that directly challenging Jerry or trying to wrest away control through confrontation would be disastrous. Jerry didn't become a billionaire and maintain iron-fisted control of America's team for over 3 decades by being someone who responds well to public challenges to his authority. But what if you could guide him toward the right decisions, present the information in ways that make the correct choice obvious, and create situations where acting decisively feels like his idea all along? That's a much more sustainable strategy, one that could genuinely transform how the Cowboys operate without requiring Jerry Jones to fundamentally change who he is. The rapid firing of Matt Eberflus, coming just hours after reports suggested a prolonged evaluation period, might be the first tangible evidence that this strategy is working. If that's true, if Schottenheimer really has found a way to inject urgency and decisiveness into an organization that's historically lacked both, then Cowboys fans should be more excited about this coaching change than any in recent memory. Not because Schottenheimer has some revolutionary offensive scheme or because he's a proven championship-winning coach, but because he might be the person who finally figured out how to make the Dallas Cowboys operate like a functional, modern NFL franchise. As respected Cowboys reporter Clarence Hill Jr. noted, this was never really going to be a 10 to 12-day process, despite the initial reports. Brian Schottenheimer was giving generic answers after the Giants game, Hill observed. Jerry Jones said weeks ago it wouldn't be a difficult decision, and it wasn't. Maybe both things can be true. Maybe Jerry knew this decision needed to be made but was preparing for his typical drawn-out process, and maybe Schottenheimer accelerated that timeline by pushing for immediate action. Either way, the result is unprecedented in recent Cowboys history, a swift, decisive coaching change made at the moment it needed to be made. Now comes the hard part, identifying the right candidate, conducting a thorough but efficient search process, and making a hire that genuinely improves the team rather than just generating headlines. The Cowboys have the resources, the platform, and the roster talent to compete for championships if they can just get the defense to even an average level. They don't need an all-time great defense. They just need one that doesn't rank among the worst in NFL history. The bar is literally underground at this point. So who will it be? A retread like Raheem Morris, who knows the league and has existing relationships? An innovative mind like Brian Flores, who could bring a new defensive philosophy to Dallas? A dark horse candidate we haven't even considered yet? The answer to that question will tell us everything we need to know about whether this truly represents a new era for the Cowboys or just another false dawn in a long series of disappointments. What we know for certain is that something shifted inside the star in Frisco, whether it was Jerry Jones finally seeing the light after decades of stubbornness, or Brian Schottenheimer successfully asserting authority in a way no Cowboys coach has managed before, or some combination of both. The result is the same. A historically bad defensive coordinator was fired swiftly and decisively. That might not sound like much, but for an organization that's been defined by inaction and loyalty to a fault, it represents genuine progress. The Dallas Cowboys have been trapped in a cycle of mediocrity for nearly 3 decades, constantly promising championships while delivering first-round playoff exits and wildcard losses. They've burned through coaches and coordinators and player after player, all while maintaining the same fundamental organizational structure that prioritizes Jerry Jones's ego and his need for credit above all else. But maybe, just maybe, Brian Schottenheimer has found the formula for working within that structure while still making the decisions necessary to actually win. The coming weeks will reveal whether this optimism is justified or misplaced. The defensive coordinator hire will either confirm that real change is happening or expose this as just another publicity stunt in an endless series of them. But for now, for this moment, Cowboys fans have something they haven't had in a long time. Genuine reason to believe that things might actually be different this time. So, I want to hear from you. Who should the Cowboys hire as their next defensive coordinator? Are you Team Brian Flores, believing they need an innovative young mind with something to prove? Are you Team Raheem Morris, thinking they should stick with the experienced former head coach route? Or do you have a completely different candidate in mind, someone who could bring a fresh perspective to a defense that desperately needs it? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below, because this decision will define the Cowboys' next era for better or worse. Make sure you smash that like button if you found this breakdown valuable. Hit subscribe so you never miss the latest Cowboys news and analysis. And turn on those notifications, because you know I'll be bringing you updates as soon as the next defensive coordinator is hired. This is a pivotal moment in Cowboys history, and we're going to cover every second of it together. Thanks for watching, and until next time, let's hope America's team finally gets the defense it deserves.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.